What's good? It's your boy, Mixtape Moth, and today I'm gonna hit y'all with my top 30 hip-hop albums of the year. Let's get to it. Alright, so 2020 was hellish, but it was a good year for hip-hop, especially if you like lyrics. All I can say is thank God it became cool to be outside rapping again. So what I'm gonna do here is give y'all my top 30 hip-hop albums of the year. Just to be clear, these are not EPs or 20-minute projects. I just uploaded an EP list yesterday, so you can check that out for the shorter projects. Another thing that I want to note is that on this list, you are gonna get a variety of styles. I do listen to more than just underground hip-hop. Now, obviously, if you follow this channel, you know I mostly cover traditional hip-hop that tends to be a little more underground and hardcore. That's really my go-to music at the end of the day, but I appreciate other types of rap too, even some trap. I think it's always vital to stay connected to what the youth and the streets are listening to. This is just the type of person I am. And traveling to other US cities over time has led to my appreciation of different regional sounds. So these albums are the ones that got considerable play for me this year. I didn't get to hear everything that dropped up, but these are the ones that I tended to listen to the most. A couple of them I didn't actually get to do a formal review for, but they crept up on me and ended up making my list. But anyway, let me just get into this top 30. Number 30, Polo G's The GOAT. Polo G is a young Chicago artist who makes melodic rap. You could probably consider it drill. But what I like about him is that he's actually a good lyricist who cares about the detail in his stories and reflection. That alone separates him from other drill rap auto crooners. This album was far from flawless, but it had considerable replay value for me. And I think he's one of the most talented youngins coming out of Chicago making this type of music. Number 29, Run the Jewels, RTJ4. So I recall liking this album a lot when it dropped. It came out at the perfect time when the Black Lives Matter movement had garnered its biggest support. As far as protest music and politically charged rap, it doesn't get much better than this Run the Jewels album. The lyrics were purposeful and thought-provoking, the themes were creative, and the production was banging. Number 28, Royale-The, the Baltimore Housing Project. This was an album that I didn't get to do an actual review for, but I found myself listening to it quite a bit. Royale is a Baltimore MC who was heavily inspired by New York rappers like Nas, AZ, and Wu-Tang. So on this album, he's giving you his Baltimore experience, but on top of beats that are more mid-90s New York sounding. There's a ton of scratching on here, which I thought was dope. To me, the only drawback to this project was the lengthy skits, but it's definitely an album to check out as Royale is a true student of the game who has a bright future ahead. Number 27, Ka, Descendants of Cain. This is a conceptual album filled with a lot of elite lyricism and minimalist production. Now, Ka's music is what I would consider more of an acquired taste, but if you like streetwise philosophies mixed in with religious references, then you will definitely dig this project. But I have to be honest, it's a very dark and grim listen, so you're probably going to want to be in the right kind of mind state to want to hear it. Number 26, Slim Thug, Thug Life. Now, unfortunately, this Slim Thug album came and went, but it was a really solid project, especially if you like motivational street rap over soulful production. He kept it really simple as far as making an album for the hood with some banging soul beats. Listen, I'm not bullshitting you. If you want to hear some really good soul production, give this a listen, and it also has great features from Scarface, Zero, and LES. Number 25, Flea Lord, In the Name of Prodigy. Look, I know this album recently dropped, but after listening to it numerous times, I just knew it would secure a spot in my personal top 30 albums. On this project, Flea Lord honors his mentor, the late great Prodigy of Mobb Deep. A couple special things that I like about this album is that, well, one, it was produced entirely by Havoc, who happens to be one of my favorite producers of all time. And the second thing is that it contains a lot of dope features, artists like Ransom, Raekwon, Conway, and Havoc. Number 24, G-Herbo, PTSD. So I feel this was G-Herbo's most complete sounding album to date. He displayed growth and maturity, dabbling in topics like mental health and trauma. I thought most of the beats slapped too. I just wasn't in love with his delivery on all the tracks, but that is to be expected at times from G-Herbo. Number 23, MC8 Lessons. So this was an album that didn't hit me right away, but I found myself going back to it many times. It was long at 1 hour and 18 minutes, but there were quite a few highlights on it. You have really great features from Conway, Dave East, Talib Kweli, Havoc, Corrupt, Yuckmouth, and a beat from Primo. This is something smooth that you can ride out to when you want to get on your West Coast shit. At the end of the day, you gotta respect MC8 for his consistency and longevity in this game. Number 22, Boldy James, Real Bad Boldy. Now this album contains some of the most soulful and upbeat instrumentals that I think we've heard Boldy rap over. So if you don't particularly care for the more somber tone that accompanies most of his projects, then check this one out as the production is a little more flavorful. On here, Boldy hits us with a lot of heavy coke talk. He was really zeroing in on his old life before rap. So it was like he was taking us back to his Reasonable Doubt time. An album like this really shows why he's one of the nicest and most slept on street rappers in the game. Number 21, Rashid Chappelle and Buck Wild, Sinners and Saints. This Rashid Chappelle album was produced entirely by the legendary DITC producer Buck Wild. It plays out like an audio documentary covering everything from current social events, the criminal justice system, and Rashid Chappelle's role as a rapper signed to Trust. The production from Buck Wild was very smooth, polished, and cinematic. Number 20, The Cloth. The Fixtape. The Cloth is a hardcore collective of MCs coming out of Rochester, New York. If you like gritty, grimy, and authentic New York rap, then you definitely gotta peep The Fixtape. They might give you some Griselda vibes, but these guys have their own unique sound that they bring to the table. This is one of those albums that you should play when you're in the mood for hard as nails street rap. Number 19, Larry June, Keep Going. All right, Larry June is a Bay Area MC with a crazy ad-lib game. His work ethic is right up there with Currency and Griselda. While he dropped many projects this year, this was the best one in my opinion. The beats were provided by Harry Fraud, so you already know there were a lot of smooth ass samples for Larry to kick his fly motivational rap. Number 18, Jeezy, The Recession 2. The Recession 2 is Jeezy's best album in a long time. It didn't have stale production like some of his prior releases, and I feel he was giving us more of a grown and thoughtful outlook on the streets. So in short, Jeezy has evolved from the trap or die era while not entirely going soft on us either. He still has some bangers, he's still talking that talk, just from a more mature perspective. Number 17, Sa-Roc, the sharecropper's daughter. All right, so I gotta keep it a buck. I was super late on checking out this project, but after hearing her fire verse on Shay Noor's After 12 EP, I got inspired to check it out. I really liked her overall message of Black empowerment and the clever social commentary that she layered throughout. Sa-Roc brought a confident and energetic presence to a lot of these songs. I also thought the production was very balanced. You had the right amount of up-tempo to mellow instrumentals. Number 16, Royce the 5'9", The Allegory. This was a very strong album, both lyrically and conceptually. There are a lot of dope features as well. While I like the lyrics and the message to this a lot, I wasn't necessarily in love with all the beats. Now, he did produce all the instrumentals himself, so I can applaud and respect him for his evolution as an artist, even though I didn't care for everything sonically as much as some of his other projects. The lyrics on here were incredible. It was also very appropriate for the times and a very significant album for the culture. Number 15, Dave East, Karma 3. Karma 3 is one of the strongest Dave East projects in recent memory. One thing that I really dug about this album is that Dave East was really rapping throughout rather than attempting to create songs just for the ladies. This also contained some of the best production that I've heard him rap over since Paranoia 2. It was definitely a big improvement from his bloated Survival album from 2019. Number 14, Flea Lord and Ito, Rock America 2. Both Flea Lord and Ito dominated the underground scene this year with many standout releases. Now, a lot of Flea Lord's projects fit more in the EP category for me since they are so short. But this Rock America 2 felt more like an album. Also, I thought the production from Ito was really on point. If you like high quality street music, definitely peep this. Number 13, Mozzie, Beyond Bulletproof. Mozzie is one of the most slept on West Coast MCs. He's another very prolific rapper with an extensive catalog. This album, Beyond Bulletproof, is his most complete and consistent body of work. In my opinion, the beats are simple yet effective, and his rapping is crispy. If you like vivid and intense street narratives, don't sleep on this one. Number 12, Elzhi, 7 times down, 8 times up. Elzhi is a very underrated lyricist coming out of Detroit. Now, I wouldn't say that Elzhi is an MC who I would listen to regularly, but I think he dropped a very dope project in 2020. I was very impressed. His lyricism, wordplay, and storytelling was unreal, and the production handled by J.R. Swift did not disappoint. The soulful boom bap vibes were in full effect. I was getting a Little Brother feel from some of these beats. I'm not going to hold you, but Elzhi is a masterful MC who deserves all the flowers in 2020. Number 11, Boldy James, The Price of Tea in China. Out of the 4 Boldy James albums that came out in 2020, this was his most critically acclaimed one. The beats were provided entirely by The Alchemist, who has had a strong chemistry with Boldy James ever since their first chemistry set back in 2013. Now, this album is very dark sonically with a lot of eerie and moody beats. Because I tend to like criminology rap with a sinister tone, this album resonated with me in a big way. Number 10, Westside Gunn, Pray for Paris. Pray for Paris is arguably Westside Gunn's most ambitious release to date. The production choices were richer, more colorful, and even more polished than previous releases. It even featured a couple of mainstream artists such as Wale and Tyler, the Creator. To me, he really succeeded in tapping into this fly and luxurious aesthetic. I think this album is a nice balance between refined drug rap and hardcore hip hop. This had a lot of tracks that I still play, like 327, Eurostep, $500 Ounces, and Claiborne Kick. Number 9, 21 Savage and Metro Boomin, Savage Mode 2. Look, you can say what you want about 21 Savage, but he managed to put together a great trap album. The production from Metro Boomin was insanely good, and there's just a feeling that I get when I bump this in the whip, like I'm just filled with that gangster energy and no one can tell me nothing. The Morgan Freeman narration was cinematic and haunting. I really think it took the project to the next level. While 21 is unlikely to blow your mind lyrically, I thought he showed some diversity and switched up his flow this time around. He also managed to bring the right amount of energy and presence to these tracks to make them stand out. I feel this was the best trap album I've heard since Migos' Culture One. Number 8, Rome Streetz, Contraband. Rome Streetz is an artist who has quickly become one of my favorite rappers of the year. While I enjoyed his Noise Candy projects, it was the Contraband album that I thought was his best. The production from UK producer Pharma Beats was hard-hitting and psychedelic. Rome Streetz is a really complete lyricist. In my opinion, he can give you that introspection, storytelling, punchlines, slick wordplay, and he has a really unique flow. As someone who is a fan of authentic street rap, I feel Rome Streetz is one of the best to do it. Number 7, Stove God Cooks, Reasonable Drought. So Stove God Cooks has been labeled one of the MVPs of the year. This album, Reasonable Drought, was very well received for an underground album. There are a lot of good things to say about it. For starters, he's got a hell of a knack for making catchy hooks. The bars, of course, are plentiful and rewind worthy. The fact that he infuses humor throughout is also a plus. The production from Rock Marciano was raw, grimy, soulful, and fun. The only thing that I wish Stove God would have done was get a little more personal and maybe introspective. I thought that part was missing, but overall it was an excellent debut. Number 6, Benny the Butcher, Burden of Proof. This project was produced entirely by Hit Boy, who was pretty much looked at as the most sought after commercial producer of 2020. It was essentially Benny's opportunity to be heard by a new and different audience. And I think this album served its purpose in doing just that, because Benny was able to attract some attention from more casual listeners. The production was polished and the features were larger than life, but Benny was still Benny. Thankfully, he branched out without selling out. While I think Benny did everything right on the lyrical end, I gotta be honest, I didn't care for every Hit Boy beat. Lyrically, it was one of the best albums of the year. And beat-wise, it was mostly good. There were just like a couple instrumentals that I thought were a little stale or maybe didn't suit Benny's style. Number 5, Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist Alfredo. It's got all the elements to make a great album. Good chemistry between rapper and producer, effortless flows, sharp wordplay, an eclectic batch of instrumentals, and heavy street content. I like how they didn't overly complicate things. It's just a mafioso rap album with a nice blend of eerie and luxurious production. Now, this project wasn't nearly as ambitious as Bandana, but I ended up liking it more. It was short and to the point, laid back at times, but also very hard-hitting. Number 4, Ransom and Nicholas Craven, Director's Cut Scene 3. All of 2020, we have witnessed Ransom rap at the highest level. His cinematic bars and street poetic verses have been magnificent. This whole year, it's pretty inspiring to witness an OG still going this hard. Out of the 5 projects that Ransom released with Nicholas Craven this year, Director's Cut 3 was my favorite one, not only because the rapping was so on point, but Nicholas Craven's vintage soul and psychedelic rock production was outstanding. Also, the feature verses from Rome Streets and 38 Special were pretty unreal. Number 3, Nas, King Disease. Nas is one of my favorite MCs of all time. I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed with his Nasir album and some of Lost Tapes too, but this album, King's Disease, produced by Hit Boy, was everything that I could have wanted from a Nas album in 2020. It received mixed views. Some people thought he went too commercial, but I feel it was a perfectly balanced project with just the right amount of smooth, hardcore, and radio-friendly songs. You know, Nas is an icon who is not in the same frame of mind as he was when he made Illmatic, and it was written when he still lived in the projects in Queensbridge. I really feel that Nas brought out the best in Hit Boy because these instrumentals were better, in my opinion, than the ones that he gave to Big Sean and Benny. I don't care if this project wasn't popular in the underground world. It damn sure resonated with me. But for some perspective here, I also really like smooth player shit and smooth gangster shit that goes hard in the whip at the end of the day. I feel artists like Fat Joe and Jay-Z strive to make albums like this virtually every time, and they don't receive a fraction of the hate that Nas does for it. Number 2, Shay Noor, Apollo Brown, As God Intended. This album grew on me significantly throughout the year. I recall giving it 4 mics when I reviewed it initially, but with time, my rating increased to a 4.5. Shay Noor and Apollo Brown really gave us a complete and well put together album. This project had it all from vivid storytelling, effortless flows, confident braggadocio, and clever wordplay. What I really liked was that Shay was able to find a nice balance between making socially conscious and hardcore hip hop. The Apollo Brown production was a blend of vintage soul and smooth boom bap. Shay was able to effortlessly glide over these instrumentals in a manner that gave me flashbacks to early Big and Nas. And that brings us to number 1. The number 1 album on my list was Conway's From King to a God. Now, out of all the albums on my list, this one had the most replay value for me by far. Conway is such a versatile MC who's able to branch out and test the commercial waters slightly while still remaining true to that Griselda sound. There are so many tracks that were incredible to me on here, like Lemon, which had one of the best feature verses of the year from Method Man. My favorite posse cut of the year, Juvenile Hell, was produced by Havoc. Forever Dropping Tears, produced by Eric Sermon and Rock Wilder. This was probably the most introspective we have heard Conway. And of course, the DJ Premier produced Nothing Less, which was a masterful boom bap record. I think this album really spoke to me so much for 3 reasons. One, I really like street rappers who were lyrical, and Conway has some of the best wordplay and probably the most confident flow in the game. Number 2, I liked when artists make very balanced projects without selling out, and that's exactly what Conway did here. He branched out slightly while still keeping it gutter. And number 3, some of my favorite producers of the past and present did beats on this album. Derringer, Alchemist, Havoc, Eric Sermon, and DJ Premier, and the end result was a classic. I initially gave this album 4.5 mics, but with repeated listens, I now give Conway's From King to a God a rating of 5 mics. Yes, it is the only album that I gave 5 mics to this year. All right, so this was it. As much as I love and embrace underground East Coast hip hop, I like different albums for different reasons. I like to include some variety and to shine some light on artists in other regions. I'm also really big into the whole package: lyrics, beats, vibes, regional influence, authenticity, and artists who I can feel and relate to. In order for me to really embrace an album like that throughout a whole year, it's got to have those components. There were a ton of strong projects in 2020. And like I said earlier, I didn't get to all of them. And some of the ones that I didn't include may have made a bigger list. Like, let's say I did 40 or 50 albums of the year. But this right here was my own personal top 30. Please leave a message in the comment section below. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out, but be sure to hit that like button and please subscribe. As always, it's peace and blessings. Top 30 hip hop albums of the year, 1.